Thanks for staying with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. As promised, before we went to that 2-minute break, we're going to be diving a bit further into some of the headlines that are coming out of the Middle East. Want to put up this live shot that we have there in Tel Aviv. So what we do know is that today, President Trump said that he ordered a series of airstrikes on the Houthi-held areas there in Yemen, promising to use overwhelming lethal force until Iranian-backed Houthi rebels cease their attacks on shipping alongside that vital maritime corridor. Right now, we do know that the Houthis have said in response that 13 civilians have been killed in the capital. I want to put this on your screen as well. This is a portion of that statement from President Trump that he put on Truth Social as he announced some of these attacks. I'm going to read it out in full here, and then we're going to dive in with some of our experts to decode what this means and overall what the impact will be there in the region. But as this reads here, President Trump says the Houthi attack on American vessels will not be tolerated. We will use overwhelming lethal force until we have achieved our objective. The Houthis have choked off shipping and one of the most important waterways of the world, grinding vast swaths of global commerce to a halt and attacking the core principle of freedom of navigation upon which international trade and commerce depends. Our brave warfighters are right now carrying out aerial attacks on the terrorist bases, leaders and missile defenses to protect American shipping, air, and naval assets, and to restore navigational freedom. No terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels from freely sailing the waterways of the world. Wanted to bring you that portion of the statement. Again, we brought this to you as breaking news when it came out that President Trump has now conducted these wide-ranging missile strikes against the Houthis and Yemen. I want to bring into the conversation now Ken Gray. Thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, we like to keep our eye on this region as some of this news comes out. First of all, what were your thoughts initially when you heard that President Trump had ordered these attacks there on the Houthis?
Hi, Christina. Glad to be with you. To me, this is something that should have occurred over a year ago. That is, the Houthis have been dominating the Red Sea, denying the use of the Red Sea for international commercial shipping. Billions of dollars have been wasted because ships have had to sail all the way around Africa to be able to get up into the European countries into the United States, denying them the opportunity to be able to go through the Suez Canal. The Egyptian government has been reeling from the fact that they have not been able to get the money from shipping going through the Suez Canal. Now, the Houthis have announced that they are going to resume their attacks on ships in that area. They had not been doing so for about the last month during the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. But now they have recently just announced that they were going to resume their attacks on ships. So President Trump has rightly said that we will not tolerate that. We will not tolerate U.S. warships coming under fire by the Houthis, and that we will take care of the problem of the Houthis. This is not a one-time strike like happened during the Biden administration. We're not going to see a few missiles or a few aircraft attack, and then that'll be it for the operation. This is attacks that will be ongoing for days to weeks.
And when we're seeing these attacks, as you say, they're going to be ongoing for days to weeks. This has been expected. Can you sort of explain the long relationship between Iran and the Houthis as well? They are one of those proxy groups there in the region.
So the axis here of resistance, Iran runs a group of proxy countries, proxy groups throughout that area, all the way from Iran across to Lebanon, down into Israel with Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, and also with the Houthis. The Houthis have been punching far above their weight class in that they had wanted to get into the fight against Israel with Hamas, but because of the distance from Israel, they've only been able to do a couple of airstrikes against Israel, and none of them have been effective. However, they have been showing themselves to be very effective at launching attacks on commercial shipping going through the Red Sea and denying the Red Sea passage for commercial shipping. And so they have been harassing shipping and have been a constant source of irritation, but they are finally going to be dealt with. So far today, attacks on them have been striking at things like radar installations or launching equipment or missiles. What actually has to happen is to make the Houthi leadership pay a price to seek out and neutralize their leadership in addition to their equipment. So a lot of their equipment has been put underground, so that denies them as easy targets. But the Houthi leadership should be targeted also.
And when we're thinking about the broader impact of some of these attacks, let's first talk about the economic impact. These ships, they are going through that region. It's a major thoroughfare, as President Trump said. Can you sort of talk about how that's impacting multiple countries, not just the United States, as it's a frequently used path for shipping?
Yeah, all the goods that are passing from the Far East take that route through the Red Sea. So we're talking about impact on a lot of different countries' economies. Parts for cars, for instance, often have been had to be directed all the way around Africa, taking an additional month to get to their end use to be put into automobiles as they're being manufactured. Electronic goods coming from China has to be diverted all the way around like that around Africa. And so this has been an impact not only on the United States, but an impact on European countries across the board and an impact on the Far East. And so the Houthis are, as I say, are punching far above their weight class. They are having a real impact to be such a small group that barely controls the country of Yemen. They have split Yemen into the Yemen government and the Houthi government, and so they have been a constant source of irritation. Saudi Arabia had been fighting with them before they ended up making peace with the Houthis. The Houthis, as I say, wanted to be involved in the attack on Israel, but their distance made that very difficult. So they did the next best thing and tried to dominate shipping going through this area.
And as we're continuing on here, we do know as well that the Houthis put out a statement saying that 13 civilians had been killed in the process. Of course, this is going to continue on. And we also know that the United States says that, according to officials, that they are the only ones who participated in this attack. Do you think that others of our allies will continue to jump into this fight as well? Or do you think this will solely be a U.S. action that's taking place for the time being?
I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what will happen in the weeks to come, but I think that the United States has sufficient force in this area to be able to punish the Houthis enough to stop them from resuming their attacks. We've got the Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group there, comprised of the carrier and the aircraft on board the carrier. And it also has destroyers, and it has a cruiser with it. Plus, there's also a cruise missile submarine there in the area. And so that alone should be sufficient force to be able to stop the Houthis from resuming their attacks in this area, and should be able to met out enough punishment to keep them from being a continued source of irritation.
Overall, with this U.S. show of force there in the region, how do you think this is going to impact some of the other groups that are there in the Middle East, including Israel? Of course, they currently do have a ceasefire agreement with Hamas, no matter how fragile at this point. But do you think that this will impact some of the other conflicts there in the region?
So the chief country that will be impacted by this is Iran. Iran is the puppet master pulling the strings on all the puppets. The Houthis being one of these puppets, they have been greatly damaged by the actions there in Syria, which Harakat with Hayat al Tom Sham, HYT. Overthrowing the Syrian government and denying Iran access to Hezbollah. And so this is another one of their puppets. So they don't have Hezbollah. Hamas is all but neutralized, and now they are losing the Houthis, which were constantly launching attacks on ships in the area for Iran. And now they've lost out on that group also. So Iran is the one that is actually, in addition to the Houthis, is going to be the country suffering the most from this.
Again, putting up that portion of President Trump's statement as he talked about the U.S. conducting these strikes against the Houthis there in Yemen. We've been here with Ken Gray helping us to break down some of the latest headlines. Ken, before I let you go, any more thoughts that things and people that who are listening now should be looking out for over the next few days after President Trump made this announcement?
So the president said that we were going to have a continued set of operations against the Houthis. It will be interesting to see how the Houthis will react to that, whether they will continue to try to attack shipping in the area, or if they go to ground and stop. The civilian casualties are due to the fact that the Houthis are placing their weapon systems within civilian population areas. And so the human shields that are being used to try to protect their systems are the population in that area. So they, of course, will be also the ones suffering from this. But, this is long overdue. I'm surprised that it did not happen earlier, but the Biden administration was very, very reluctant to carry out any operations in this area. And they were constantly hamstringing the Israelis from taking care of Hamas. And the Houthis continue to be a problem because the Biden administration refused to do anything other than a couple of selective strikes on weapon systems.
All right, once again, Ken Gray here to help us break down some of these topics as it pertains to this breaking news that we brought to you as President Trump did order this attack on the Houthis. We appreciate you for being with us here on Live Now, helping us to break down some of these more complex topics coming out of the Middle East.
Thank you.